Hey friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This week we are going to be talking about traveling as an autistic adult. And I'm actually going to be reading from an old blog post of mine for this video, so sit back and watch my old travel adventures while I discuss my advice and experiences traveling as an autistic person. I do want to start off by saying that autism is a spectrum, and every single person that is on that spectrum has different needs and capabilities, and those can even vary day to day. It's not possible to give blanket advice that every autistic person could relate to and apply to their own lives. So I can only speak from my own personal experience, so please take what resonates and leave what doesn't. Use your own discernment. I'm a level 1 lower support needs autistic. Yes, I'm still autistic, but my needs are going to be very different from someone who is not level 1 with higher support needs or someone who is in need of more consistent care. Travel is also a special interest of mine and one of my biggest dreams, so it definitely impacts what I'm willing to put myself through. With all that being said, I really hope this can help someone who is wanting to travel but is anxious about, well, everything. You might not even want to travel, but maybe you need to for work or with your family. No matter your situation, I got you. Tip number 1 is to plan. Yep, this is definitely going to feel like a no-brainer. This applies to anyone who is traveling, but especially autistic people. As someone with ADHD and autism, I simultaneously hate and love this part about travel. I think we can all agree that we do not love the unknown, visiting a new city with new restaurants, ways of transportation, sleeping in new places, and just about everything that could possibly be different from our daily routine. It can be really difficult for a lot of us. We tend to be creatures of habit, and rightfully so. Our brains are working at different paces, and we are taking in so much new information that it can be extremely overwhelming to be in a new place. Planning helps alleviate a lot of unknown parts about travel. Spending time researching your destination is so important when wanting to be as prepared as possible. Take the time to research what activities there are to do in that location. If you have a special interest in something, maybe checking to see if there are any museums or activities that you can do to pertain to it. Research restaurants and check to see if they have your safe foods. If you're traveling with other people, seeing if there are places that you can all eat at and be satisfied. Become familiar with the transport of the city you're visiting. Public transport is great, but it's a nightmare for me mentally. Just do as much research and planning as you want to feel as prepared as possible. I personally like to leave room for some spontaneity, but I still do a ton of research, even if that's only a few days prior to arriving in a new location. Traveling slash backpacking long term has changed me in a lot of ways, and I'm more willing to be more last minute now. It all works out. Travel is full of so many variables, but if you can at least be aware of those variables, I truly think you can head out onto your next adventure with a little less anxiety about it all. All right, tip number 2 is know your needs. I am writing this as a very general tip. If you're autistic, you know that your needs might differ from mine. We know it's a spectrum and we all have different strengths and weaknesses. Something I really struggle with is social interactions. I struggle with social anxiety and I often find my social battery running out quite quickly. For me, when I'm traveling, I need to stay ahead of this and ensure I'm getting plenty of alone time. And sometimes this looks like drawing the curtains in a hostel and watching Netflix. And I do find myself feeling guilty doing these things like this when I'm traveling, but if I don't, the consequences of my actions are worse than just feeling guilty. I don't like being pushed to points of shutting down and becoming nonverbal or having meltdowns in public. I try my best to avoid those by being aware of things that I can control. Sometimes I cannot avoid a meltdown, so I just feel those emotions and know that it won't last forever. I also really struggle with food, especially while I'm traveling. I can try new foods and I try at least one main dish in every country I visit, but on the daily, I do like to stick to my safe foods. I have no problem eating things from the grocery store every day. I don't care. Or just finding a cheap restaurant that I feel comfortable in and going there every day. I just know that I struggle with food intake, so I do what I can to nourish my body. While this is a very general tip, I think it's the most important. I think it's very important to spend time with yourself and get to know who you are and what your limits are. I'm thankful that I'm pretty self aware and I've developed the ability to know my autistic needs because I think it would be really challenging to travel by myself if I was completely in the dark about this stuff. Tip number 3 kind of goes with tip number 2, but pack accommodations for yourself. As someone who is traveling long term and only carrying 2 backpacks, I'm very limited on space, but it's really important that I pack things to help me accommodate my needs in certain situations. For me, this includes a couple comfort items, a fidget toy, earplugs. These are the things that I need to accommodate my autistic needs. I bring comfort items because I am an anxious person and it can help to just have an item from home to bring you back down when you're feeling overwhelmed or homesick. I pack a crystal, a mini giraffe figurine, and sometimes a tiny stuffed animal. Depends on how much room I have. For fidget toys, I love those magnetic balls or one of those snake fidgets. I'm not someone who needs a fidget at all times, but I do like having them. I don't need them as often though because I wear rings and I mainly use those as fidgets. I'm constantly playing with my rings and that helps a lot because they are discreet and fashionable but also serve a deeper purpose. Regardless of your neurotype, if you're going to be staying in hostels, you need earplugs. I have two different types of earplugs. They're both the loop earplugs, though. I used to have a discount code, but I don't think it works anymore. Anyways, I have their Experience Pros that I use more for everyday use, as it allows me to feel comfortable talking with people with my earplugs in. And then I use their Quiets for when I'm in public transport situations and when I'm wanting to go to sleep. If you're staying in mixed dorms, they are non negotiable because the big sweaty men snore really loud. My tip number 4 is to volunteer abroad. Not only is this my best tip for budget travelers, I also love this tip for my fellow autistic travelers. I've done a total of 4 volunteer experiences, and 3 of them have been through the World Packers app. My dream collab was with World Packers, and I wrote it in my manifestation journal, and 6 months later, I achieved that goal. You can use code Jordan, all caps, for money off your subscriptions. I do earn a small commission if you use my code. I haven't convinced too many people to buy through my link. Maybe I suck at selling it, but I promise you this is a must if you're searching for routine, community, and budget-friendly traveling experiences. I obviously love not having to pay for a place to sleep. I'm cheap and I want to do things as cheap as I can most of the time, and I would rather pay for other experiences. When you volunteer through World Packers, you work a few hours a day in exchange for accommodation, and often food is included as well. My favorite travel experiences are my volunteer ones. My first World Packers was spent in a small mountain town in Switzerland for 6 weeks. I spent the first 2 weeks helping out at a language camp, and the other 4 weeks were at a co-living space. My second World Packers was in Bled, Slovenia, cleaning for 5 hours a day at a hostel. I spent a month there. I also lived with a random 45-year-old man in Bosnia for a month, helping him with his cats and cleaning his house. I say this as a tip for autistic travelers because I love the routine and stability it allows me to have while still traveling and experiencing new things. I know we love our routines. You have to do a little bit of work every day, and then you have the rest of the day to do what you please. I love cleaning, so I have no problem spending a few hours a day doing this. Cleaning is easy. I feel like I can't screw it up. I love that I'm able to develop other crucial routines around my volunteer schedule. I can buy a temporary gym membership, journal in the mornings, get daily walks in, and cook proper meals. I also love that I can further my travel connections and deepen those bonds because oftentimes when you travel, you are creating fleeting friendships. Sometimes all you can manage is small talk in your hostel dorm room. These quick whirlwind travel friendships are valuable and fun in their own right, but sometimes it's really nice to get to know people on a deeper level and spend a few weeks together. I do think the social aspects of some volunteer positions can be very demanding, so I just recommend finding something that can work for you. The people I've met on my World Packers experiences are some of the best people I've ever met in my entire life. I felt like they got to know me for me. I even met another autistic person in Switzerland and was able to bond with them about our experiences traveling. By staying in one place, you eliminate the stress of catching trains and dealing with a new environment every few days. If you have the privilege of time and can spend a couple weeks volunteering through World Packers, I cannot recommend it enough. And last but not least, tip number 5, don't expect to travel like an alistic. It doesn't seem like there's a ton of autistic travel influencers or bloggers, whatever you wish to call them. I recently found a couple, but it's nowhere near as saturated as alistics in the field. It doesn't seem like we have a super visible part in this realm. Because of this, we are fed alistic travel guides and tips that might just not work for us. When I first started traveling by myself, I felt a lot of guilt because I was not doing as much as the people I was seeing on the internet, which, to be fair, you should never really compare yourself to people on the internet no matter what. I would watch TikToks of these travel influencers traveling, and I felt sad when I couldn't replicate the exact same travels. There's this idea that when you're traveling, you need to be taking full advantage of every second you are away from home. And I agree with this to an extent. Obviously, if you're somewhere new, you should be exploring and doing the things you cannot do when you're at home. What's the point of flying to a new country or driving to a new state and sitting in your hostel dorm bed the whole time? Go out and see the world, but you don't need to see, do, and try everything. This all connects back to understanding your needs. Some days you will wake up like those neurotypical travel influencers and you will go see all the touristy sites, try new foods, and some days it just might not be possible for you, and that's okay. It's best to relieve yourself of the guilt you might be feeling, and I am definitely projecting my own experiences because I always feel super guilty, and unfortunately, those feelings are still present when I travel today. It's okay to slow down and travel the way that you want to travel. Whether you are on a week-long vacation or you're solo traveling for weeks or months at a time, this journey is yours. The days can be spent doing whatever you please. Listen to your intuition and only do the things you feel called to do, not what others might be pressuring you to do. You're the one paying for your travels, unless you have a sugar daddy, in which case, congrats. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this YouTube video. I hope you got something beneficial out of it. Autism is a spectrum, and we all deal with things differently, and travel is a special interest of mine, and I love it dearly. And not every autistic person is going to feel the same way, and that's okay. So whether you're wanting to start solo traveling around the world or your friends are dragging you on a spring break trip, be prepared and accommodate yourself. This is just a little YouTube video, barely scratches the surface. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And make sure to like, comment, subscribe for new videos every Thursday. See you next week.